Cincinnati in Cleveland. We go at Cleveland for this matchup. And obviously this Bengals offense has been clicking this preseason. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Usual suspects here. You're going to fire up all your options. Joe Burrow figures in as a high-end QB1. Jamar Chase, high-end wide receiver 1. And then T. Higgins is obviously a high-end wide receiver 2 with touchdown appeal. And obviously it's a tougher matchup across the board for this for the Bengals, but we've seen them take advantage of this matchup before. Jamar Chase has had strong games against Denzel Ward in this Cleveland secondary, but they are healthy to start the year. We do know Myles Garrett wrecks havoc, so I think you're obviously playing all of your Cincinnati passing game options. So high upside here. This point total does seem a little bit high, but shit, we'll see what it looks like. Obviously, Cincinnati should be favored in this game like they are. Chase Brown in the run game, obviously, is another player we have to talk about. Drafted as a top 7 running back off the board this year, and he should have a good game. This Cleveland defensive line is legit, though, so curious to see if they use him a little bit more in the passing game or if they just kind of give him touch volume. They said they've made some changes offensively to kind of scheme things open for Chase Brown. So I'm curious to see what that looks like here in game 1. But this Cleveland defense was a little stingier to running backs. They were a top 6 against the position last year. So I think Chase Brown is still fire up start. I'm a little bit more cautious with this Cleveland defense being a division game. I could see Cleveland actually giving Cincinnati a little bit more problems than the score indicates. For me, I'd probably play like the under in this one. But I do like Chase Brown still as a back-end RB1, high-end RB2, more back-end RB1 than RB2 this week. Mike Gesicki is a pure dart throw. Obviously with the pass rush, Myles Garrett provides, check things down a little bit more. I could see Joe Burrow getting Mike Gesicki a couple catches. You're kind of hoping on a touchdown with Gesicki, though. Most cases, you're not starting. And as far as Cleveland, we have a new starter in Cleveland. Obviously, Deshaun Watson going to be on IR for the entire year. They drafted a few guys, but Joe Flacco is the quarterback for this team. And we saw him really have some strong performances, kind of intermittently with the Colts last year, some big games, and then obviously some games that weren't as strong. So that might be a little bit of age. That might just be, being on multiple teams, but he's familiar with this Cleveland team already. He's been there. We've seen him have a strong connection with David Njoku a couple years ago with Amari Cooper. So we know he's going to sling the rock, and this Cincinnati defense is really not that terrifying, right? And obviously we know the struggles that this Cincinnati defense has had. So Joe Flacco is a super flex start for me this week, like a QB2. I don't think he has much more appeal than that, but it wouldn't be shocking to see like him actually have a decent game against the Cincinnati defense. And like I said, I like Cleveland plus 5.5, and I kind of like the under in this game as well. Could get a little gritty. But Joe Flacco is obviously we've seen a mixed bag with him. Sometimes he comes and plays, at a high level. Then other times we see him struggle a little bit. I think, against the Cincinnati defense, you can have confidence he'll play well. Also a decent spot here, even though Cincinnati was good against receivers last year. They were top 10 against the position last year. I still think Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman both have decent shots at good games here. I think Jerry Jeudy is going to look to replicate what he did last year, where he finishes a top 20 receiver. And Jerry Jeudy is just one of those players. I don't know why we've kind of disrespected him. Maybe it's because of his early days in Denver. But when you think about what Jerry Jeudy really provides, like he was, I want to say he was top 12 last year. He's 12 is 15, one of the two, top 12 or top 15 at the position last year. And this is a former first-round pick. This is a really talented receiver that's just hitting he's only 26 years old. So maybe it just took him a little bit more time to catch on. And I know Steve Smith said he was just a guy. But Jerry Jeudy clearly proved he's more than that last season. And Joe Flacco will get the ball. Like I said, I know y'all remember the game where Amari Cooper had 50-plus fantasy points in like week 15 or 16 of the season. That's the same type of potential he's playing with here with Jerry Jeudy and Joe Flacco. That's the same connection that could be there. So Jerry Jeudy is the number 1 receiver. I think he has a lot of appeal. He's a back-end wide receiver, too, for me this week against Cincinnati. And then Cedric Tillman is on the flex radar, probably more touchdown or bust. Still could see some volume. Like I said, Flacco does tend to spread things out and give receivers opportunity. I think Cedric Tillman, I would want him on the bench more so than in the flex spot, but it wouldn't be the end of the world if you had him as your flex. And then as far as Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson, Jerome Ford, obviously this backfield wanted Quinshon Judkins, and it remains to be seen if he's going to be available for this week. There's talks that they could get a deal signed. As of recording, he has not signed yet, so if something has changed in that, then obviously I'd have to address it. But for now, Jerome Ford is going to be that back that does a little bit of everything. They'll run in between the tackles. They'll use him in the passing game, use him in the red zone. Dylan Sampson's going to be more of the pass catching role. I'm sure he'll still see a few carries. So if I had to kind of guess, I think Jerome Ford would take the lead. He'd be like an RB3-ish type play for me. And then in PPR leagues, Dylan Sampson would be a desperation type flex. Now, Quinshon Judkins is active for this game. I would expect him to take lead back duties. Kevin Stefanski said they've liked what they've seen out of Judkins. He's been professional throughout this entire time. So that leads me to believe if there's no suspension and he's on the field, he's been around the team in practice, they're going to let him play. And I would expect him to see somewhere between 10 and 15 carries. So if Judkins plays, I think he'd be an RB3 flex. Now, that's just me kind of speaking it out. I don't know if he's going to be available or what they're actually going to say as far as his availability. If he does get the start or if we get like, hey, Judkins is going to play, I would lean towards like RB3-ish type play for Quinshon Judkins. I would try to stay away until we knew exactly what was going on. And then as far as David Njoku, this was the best matchup for tight ends last year. Cincinnati was. So David Njoku is obviously a fire-up. I've liked him more as a tight end, like a mid-tier tight end one. He's been going back-end tight end one, which really doesn't make sense because he's been elite over the last couple seasons, especially paired up with Joe Flacco again. A lot of room here for David Njoku to outplay where he's being drafted and probably where a lot of people have him ranked. So the matchup's good. This might be a top 5 type matchup for him, like as far as being ranked as a top 5 tight end. I could see that being the case here for David Njoku.